आणि मग फक्त ते अर्ध्या भागात ते एक घ्या चालतं.
नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग. आपण जॉईन झालं. पण जॉईन
अर्ध्या मिनिटात घ्या. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
वासळीकर साहेब, गुड मॉर्निंग.
गुड मॉर्निंग, व्हेरी गुड मॉर्निंग. कसे?
छान. आवाज येतो क्लिअर?
हो, येतो येतो.
केकले साहेब नमस्कार.
नमस्कार नमस्कार सर, नमस्कार. हाउ आर यू?
फाइन फाइन सर, थैंक यू.
Because of you all this it is happened.
No. It is a teamwork, sir, not individual.
Yes. But you took a very nice initiative.
Okay.
How are you?
त्यांनी शेअर करून ठेवली स्क्रीन सर. त्यांनी स्क्रीन शेअर करून ठेवलेली होती.
नाही दिसणार नाही का आपल्याला व्हर्च्युअल बॅकग्राऊंड?
प्रेझेंटेशन
त्यांचं प्रेझेंटेशन चालू आहे.
त्यांच्या प्रेझेंटेशनचं काय संबंध?
आपलं होलसेल आपलं
पोझिशन नाही, सेटिंग मध्ये जावं लागतं.
तर जाऊ दे, काढून टाक ते.
साइनिंग करा पाहिजे.
Yes, I am connected. नहीं
रीसाउंड आ रहा है, कुछ नजर रखो, वॉइस कम करो.
आवाज तुमचा खूप लांबून येतो. लॅपटॉप जवळ घ्या.
Voices are coming resound. Please reduce your sounds.
जवळ घ्यावं लागेल का? ते काय जवळ गेली
तुम्ही ते छोटेसे दिसताय ना व्यवस्थित तर आपण याला वर बसवू.
दुसरं एक आणून घ्या.
ते
हा?
का
नाही नाही काय
अजून थोडं बोलताना
दोन मिनिट. Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning, Honorable Justice Gangapurwala, sir.
Very good morning, everybody.
Everybody.
Morning.
गुड मॉर्निंग माय लॉर्ड.
Good morning.
Subedar, go ahead.
Good morning to all. I welcome all the dignitaries with the permissions of the Honorable Lordship. May I start the program?
Yes.
Then shall we proceed? Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right.
Oblige your lordship. A very warm welcome and good morning to respected dignitaries and beloved participants. It is an established principle of law that law is not static, but it is dynamic. It changes as per the changing need of the society. In the early 1980s, I would have said that one day thousands of law students across the country would be able to interact with each other live, sitting at their homes. Maybe you would have laughed at me, but today that is possible. All because of the advancement in the field of science and technology. Just like a coin has two sides, this field also has spoons as well as cursors. Today, we are not just restricted to the offences mentioned under the Indian Penal Code, but there are many such offences, a new set of crimes evolved out of the virtual world. From now, for the next 5 days, we would be exploring this virtual world and the offences herein. I welcome you all to this inaugural session of the 5-day national webinar on the subject of emerging trends in cybercrime, organized by MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, Aurangabad, District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, an advanced center on research, development, and training in cyber laws and forensics, National Law School of India University, Bengaluru. For this inaugural session, we are delighted to have with us our chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice Sanjay V. Gangapurwala sir, Judge, Bombay High Court. We also have with us Shri S.G. Tekare sir, Principal District and Session Judge, Aurangabad. We have with us Dr. Pavan Duggal sir, renowned advocate and an internationally acclaimed speaker. We also have Advocate Shri J.K. Vasudevan sir, President, Marathwada Legal and General Education Society, Aurangabad. Dr. C.M. Rao sir, Principal, MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, Aurangabad. Distinguished members from the bar and bench, office bearer of the Marathwada Legal and General Education Society, District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, and National Law School of India University, Bengaluru. Now, may I request Dr. C.M. Rao sir, Principal, MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, Aurangabad, to kindly introduce the event to the August gathering. Over to you, sir.
It gives me immense pleasure to say a few words to the honorable members who are gathered today for the purpose of inaugural session of 5-day workshop on emerging trends in cyber crimes. The 21st century beginning, world's economic crisis does not have an impact on Indian economy because of LPG policy of government in 1990. The Digital India 2015 also attracted more investments, and the investors need security for their data protection. The revelation of PRISM in the United States has reignited global debate on national security versus right to privacy. Many government programs of national security and cyber security raise privacy concerns. It is the responsibility of the governments to assuage such concerns by establishing adequate safeguards for protecting privacy. It took 4 years to notice the fraud in Punjab National Bank by Nirav Modi. The Computer Emergency Team in India, CERT, report that in 2010, security incidents were 13,301. In 2015, 49,455. In 2016, it is 50,362. In 2017, it was 53,117. In 2018, it was 208,456. And in 2009, till October, it was 313,649. RBI reported in 2010 that financial fraud over internet were 789.39 lakh rupees in Indian currency, or in US currencies it is 1.6 million, whereas in 2018-19 financial year it was 14,429 crores, and in 2009 April to December it was 1.43 lakhs. 131.2 million is the number of cyber crime victims in India in 2019, compared with 350 million worldwide. Rupees 1.24 trillion is the amount lost in India in the past 12 months due to cyber crimes. 81% of Indians are alarmed about their privacy, the highest in 10 countries, with the global average of 67. So unless and until the members of the society bullying with what is cyber crime, the victims of cyber crime will be increasing day by day. With this object of cyber crimes, we, MP Law College and District Legal Service Authority of Aurangabad, and also the Research Center of NLSIU Bengaluru, welcome you all to aware the particular importance and significance of these cyber crimes. On behalf of MP Law College and other co-hosts, I welcome Honorable Chief Guest, Justice Ganga Purwala, District Judge Eklesap, and our President, Advocate Vasidikar, and today's guest speaker, Pavan Duggal, and all other members, dignitaries, and all the members of the judiciary and invitees for this particular wonderful session, which will make aware of this particular cyber crime. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for introducing the event to the August gathering. Moving further, I request Advocate Shri J.K. Vasadikar, sir, President, Marathwada Legal and General Education Society, Aurangabad, to kindly introduce the esteemed college to the function. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Moyer. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Honorable Chief Guest of this inaugural function, Honorable Justice Ganga Purwala, sir. Actually, it is painful to call him as a guest because he is one amongst us.
Yes,
I am proud to say that he is a past student of our college and also contributed immensely by taking clock hour basis lectures for contract law, and people still remember you, sir, most of the advocates.
Thank you very much.
So also, Honorable Principal District Judge Tekar, sir, I believe is well aware about this college. But for the benefit of esteemed resource persons, I am given this task of introducing the college, which I believe to be completed in 2-3 minutes. To start with, in the year 1955, some eminent lawyers and social workers, educationists decided to start a law college at Aurangabad, first of its kind. And prior to that, most of the persons interested in legal education were going to Hyderabad or Pune or Mumbai, even Nagpur also. So with this objective, keeping certain vision in mind, in the year 1956, the society was registered under Indian Societies Act as Marathwada Legal Education Society, which was subsequently expanded with Legal and General Education Society. And in the year 1957, we started this MP Law College. To start with, we didn't have any infrastructure, no place of our own. So we had hired a couple of rooms in SB College premises, and we have started our college in Saraswati Bhuvan premises. Later on, we have acquired this 10 acres land and the present building. Since the last so many 56 to 2020, this college has experienced so many changes and achieved so many milestones, which are just to be difficult to be described in a short span of 5 minutes. But for the information of the esteemed resource persons, let me tell you that presently our college is having strength of around 1500 students. It is one amongst the top 20 law colleges as surveyed by Outlook magazine. We are having, initially there was a 2 years law degree course, subsequently 3 years law was introduced, and now we are having both 3 years and 5 years law degree course. So also we are having post-graduation LLM with 3 optional subjects, and we are running as many as 5 diploma courses in cyber law, intellectual property rights, jurisprudence, constitution, and criminology. Our college has been accredited with B plus rank in the NAC assessment, and our library especially has been appreciated very much by NAC peer team as well as all the visitors who are punctually visiting, for the reason that we are having rarest of the rare books and all up-to-date law journals and subject matter books. Ours is the only college which has 13 qualified full-time lecturers having requisite qualification net set, and most of them have also acquired PhD in legal faculty. Our college is also regularly organizing moot court competition. Initially, it was a state level competition, and now it is a nationwide national moot court competition since last 14 years. So also we are arranging national PowerPoint competition every year. And in order to make legal education socially relevant and to provide legal aid to poor and needy, college runs free legal aid clinic and also organizes legal aid awareness camp. To cut short my introduction about the college, I say that our college is having vision on 5 aspects: empower the younger generation of the backward region of Marathwada to make legal education socially relevant, to provide legal aid to the poor and needy people, to move theoretical education to clinical education, and to equally facilitate students of rural and urban area, to empower women educationally, and to strive for quality legal education. So with this brief introduction of the college, I hand over the charge to Mayur. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The oldest and one in the region of Marathwada. We are blessed to have with us Shri S.D. Tekale, sir, Principal District and Session Judge, Aurangabad. May I request, sir, to deliver his welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayur. Good morning and greetings to one and all. Honorable Shri Justice S.V. Gangapurwala, Senior Judge, Bombay High Court, Bench at Aurangabad. Advocate Dr. Pavan Duggal, Advocate Shri J.K. Vasadikar, Dr. C.M. Rao, and all the participants. It gives me immense and warmth and great pleasure to grace all of your presence in this inaugural event of the webinar. It gives me tremendous contentment to be presenting the welcome speech among us the most esteemed personalities who have won accolades in their respective fields. At the outset, I, on behalf of the District Legal Service Authority, Aurangabad, welcome Chief Guest of this inaugural session, Honorable Chief Justice S.V. Gangapurwala, Senior Judge, Bombay High Court. Honorable Lordship has vast experience in the field of law. Despite hectic schedule, my Lord has accepted our invitation and made it point to grace this function. My Lord, I felt heartfelt gratitude. The presence and the guidance of Honorable Lordship will definitely motivate all the participants and set a tone of this national webinar. The Legal Service Authority is constantly working to achieve the goal of access to justice for all. Article 39A of the Constitution provides that states shall provide free legal aid to ensure that opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen by reason of economic or other disabilities. The law students throughout the country have joined this webinar on cyber law. They are future lawyers and judges. It is fundamental to the philosophy of legal services institution to provide quality free legal aid, and for that purpose, up-to-date knowledge of the law is must. District Legal Service Authority always organizes capacity building programs for panel lawyers, para-legal volunteers, and law students with a view that quality representation is made before the various authorities on behalf of poor and needy people. Seminars are organized and conducted to gain insight and information that would remain effective throughout the life. During this pandemic, we have organized webinars on human trafficking and domestic violence, child and juvenile justice law in India, revenue laws vis-a-vis civil proceedings for strengthening the legal services. This time, we have purposely chosen subject of cyber law, as with the use of technology in all the fields, the modes to commit a crime are also changed. Therefore, there are challenges before the investigators, lawyers, as well as judges. The speakers in this webinar are eminent and experienced in this field. Their knowledge will be definitely helpful for all stakeholders in the field of imparting justice. Therefore, District Legal Service Authority, in collaboration with MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, Aurangabad, and Advanced Center on Research, Development and Training Cyber Laws and Forensics, National Law School, India University, Bengaluru, has organized this national webinar. I again welcome Honorable Shri Justice S.V. Gangapurwala, Senior Judge, Bombay High Court, Bench at Aurangabad, and Advocate Dr. Pavan Duggal for this inaugural session of 5 days webinar. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all those who sincerely committed to this event to make huge success. This event would have been impossible without the support of each and everyone present here virtually. Thank you. Over to you, Mayur.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your welcome address. An English philosopher says that perfection is the business of God and not of humans. But I differ with that English philosopher after looking at our today's chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice Sanjay V. Gangapurwala, sir. We are delighted to have among us him. Sir has played many roles perfectly, from a lawyer to a legal advisor, from a badminton player to the judge. He is also a guardian of a law institute, and all the roles he has played very perfectly. Therefore, I call upon Ms. Arya Mehta to briefly introduce your lordship. Over to you, Arya.
A very warm welcome and good morning to all the dignitaries and dear participants. We welcome you all at the national webinar on the topic Emerging Trends in Cybercrimes. This is Arya Mehta of MP Law College, Aurangabad, taking privilege to introduce our today's chief guest, Honorable Justice Shri Sanjay V. Gangapurwala, Judge, Bombay High Court, Bench at Aurangabad. Your Lordship needs no introduction, but to those new in the field, I take the liberty to briefly introduce Sir to the august gathering. Having completed his BCom LLB, he stood third in the order of merit in LLB examination. Lordship started practice in the year 1985 and joined Chambers of Advocate Shri S.N. Loya, practiced in the Trial Court, High Court and Debt Recovery Tribunal. He was the advocate for financial institutions such as Central Bank of India, Bombay Mercantile Cooperative Bank, Jalgaon Janta Sahkari Bank, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, and many cooperative bodies. He also represented government before Justice Mane Commission and had a privilege to be the advocate of the Honorable the Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court. And also his achievements in extracurricular activities are: he is a keen sportsman, played lawn tennis at national level, and also has represented Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University 6 times and captained it twice in All India University tournament. He also has played basketball at state level. Lordship was honorary part-time lecturer in MP Law College since 1991 till date of elevation as additional judge of the Bombay High Court on 13 March 2010. I, on the behalf of MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, Legal Aid Clinic, Aurangabad, and District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, in collaboration with Advanced Center on Research, Development, and Training in Cyber Laws and Forensics, National Law School of India University, Bengaluru, I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to introduce such a versatile personality with the August gathering. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arya. Now, may I request our chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice Sanjay V. Gangapurwala, sir, Judge, Bombay High Court, to bless us with his inaugural address. My lords, may be pleased to take over the judge.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tekale, the Principal District and Session Judge Aurangabad, my peer, Advocate Shri J.K. Vasadikar, the President of MLNG Society, Mr. Dr. C.M. Rao, the Principal MP Law College Aurangabad, Dr. Pavan Duggal, Advocate with the practicing the Supreme Court, the dignitaries, and my fellow students. Very warm good morning to all of you. At the outset, I congratulate MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, the District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, and the Center on Research, Development, Training in Cyber Law and Forensic, NLSIU, Bengaluru, for conducting this national webinar on emerging trends in cyber crimes. It is the most happening event now. As Shri Vasadikar has said that I am the student of MP Law College, yes, I'm a proud alumni of MP Law College, Aurangabad. It is heartening to be amongst the academicians, researchers, and the students. Mayur, the anchor, had rightly said that law is a dynamic concept. It changes with the changing times, changing circumstances, and changing environment. It is never static. With the advancement of technology, globalization, accessibility to the means of communication, the world has become a small place to live in. The world is constantly in evolution. Because of the advancement of the technology, we now oversee new crimes being committed. Nobody would have thought of an internet 50, 60 years back. So no question of anyone thinking about crimes in this field. With the advancement of technology, we have now internet, we have WhatsApp, email, Facebook, internet banking. Because of the advancement in all these fields, naturally, crime has also cropped up. I remember the definition of fraud under the Section 17 of the Contract Act. It says fraud means and includes any of the following things, and we get one there, one clause, any other act fitted to deceive. Remember, an act enacted in 1882 considered new trends of commission of fraud. Nobody would have imagined cyber law at that point of time. So, with this emerging technology, the advancement of technology, the law also has to take care of the crimes in that advanced technology. Still, this law is virgin. Much research is still required to be done under this law. And the students would be benefited with the experience and the rich knowledge of the resource persons who will guide them. Now, this webinar is the result of the advanced technology. This is new normal, and I believe this is wherein across the globe, the persons would be communicating with each other. The legal education has seen a paradigm shift. The legal education has now become more interactive and innovative. When I was a student, or my peers were the students, this webinar could not have been imagined also. So with this new trend, the students are blessed to have this advanced technology and the knowledge at their fingertips. As far as these cyber crimes are concerned, your resource person who's an expert in the field of cyber laws would be in a better position to guide all of you, and the students would be benefited by the resource person's excellent knowledge. It is said that the greatest wealth is wisdom and knowledge, and which comes with experience, with a lot of reading. I am sure that after you hear Dr. Pavan Duggal, you will get yourself enlightened, and he will be illuminating the minds of one and all. Well, being a judge for short of 11 years, I have lost the touch of delivering lectures. Now my job is to hear. And basically I'm not a good orator, so as to take over the mic and start speaking. And I believe that the time should be occupied by the experts in the particular field. And I would not like to detain you from hearing Dr. Pavan Duggal. So thank you, everybody. I wish all the best for this webinar. I declare that the webinar is open. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Your Lordship, for such a wonderful insight and your blessings. Now we are heading towards the end of the inaugural session, and it is rightly said that gratitude is not only the greatest virtue, but the parent of others. So it is our foremost duty to express our gratitude towards all those because of whom we could have dreamed about this event. To express the vote of thanks, I call upon Professor Dinesh Kolte, sir, coordinator of this 5-day national webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mohit. A very good morning to all dignitaries, invitees, participants. I am Professor Dinesh Kolte, coordinator of this 5 days national level webinar on emerging trends in cybercrime. Feel honored to propose vote of thanks of this inaugural session. I, on behalf of our MLNG societies, MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College, District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, Advanced Research Center of Cyber Laws and Forensics of National Law University, Bengaluru, extend our deep sense of gratitude and sincere thanks to Honorable Shri Justice Sanjay V. Gangapurwala, Judge, Bombay High Court, Bench at Aurangabad, for giving his precious time to inaugurate this national webinar and for his valuable inaugural address. We are highly indebted to you, sir. I would like to thank Honorable Shri S.D. Tekade, sir, Principal District and Session Judge and Chairman of District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, for delivering welcome address and constant support to organize this webinar. I extend my sincere thanks to Honorable Shri J.K. Honorable Advocate Shri J.K. Vaslikar, sir, President, MLNG Society, Aurangabad, introducing college and continuous support and guidance to organize this event. I would like to thank our principal, sir, Dr. C.M. Rao, introducing webinar. Also, thanks to Honorable Dr. Kalpalata Patil Bharat Sarkar, Madam, Secretary of MLNG Society, Advocate Shrikant Advan, sir, all the officers of the MLNG Society, respected members of bench and bar, participants throughout India, all the staffs of the District Legal Services Authority, NLSIU or Bengaluru, basically, mainly Dr. A. Nagaratna Madam, Chief Coordinator of this. I also express thanks all who assisted us to organize this event successfully. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, with the permission of our chief guest and has been inaugurated. Now, in the next few minutes, we would be starting our first technical session in which Dr. Pavan Duggal, sir, a renowned advocate at the Supreme Court of India and an international acclaimed speaker, would be enlightening us. I request all the participants to stay tuned. Within a minute, we would be starting with our first session. Thank you.
Thank you.
स्पेस नहीं आ रहा इधर इधर से आ रहा है अच्छा टेबल पर ऊपर वो कम से when we get some thanks one.
With the permission of our resource person, Dr. Pavan Duggal, sir, shall we start the session? I seek permission of Dr. Pavan Duggal, sir, to start the proceedings. May I, sir?
Please proceed ahead.
Thank you, sir. Respected Pavan Duggal, sir, dignitaries and dear participants, I, Mayur Subedar, welcome you all to the first session of this 5 days national webinar on the topic of emerging trends in cybercrime. We are honored to have Dr. Pavan Duggal, sir, a renowned advocate practicing at the apex court of the country and an internationally acclaimed speaker with us this morning. I call upon Ms. Anushka Pandey to briefly introduce our today's resource person, Dr. Duggal, sir, to the august gathering. Over to you, Anushka.
Good morning to one and all present here. Myself Anushka Jayant Pandey, studying in BA LLB second year, MP Law College, Aurangabad. I feel privileged to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Pavan Duggal sir, Advocate of Supreme Court of India. While a practicing advocate in Supreme Court of India, Dr. Pavan Duggal sir has made an immense impact with an international reputation as an expert and authority on cyber law, cyber security law, artificial intelligence, and e-commerce law. He has been acknowledged as one of the top 4 cyber lawyers around the world. Dr. Duggal sir is the founder and chairman of International Commission on Cyber Security Law. He is also the president of cyberlaws.net and has been working in the pioneering area of cyber law, cyber security, and mobile law. Sir is also heading the Artificial Intelligence Law Hub and Blockchain Law Epicenter. He is founder cum honorary chairman, chancellor of Cyber Law University. Dr. Pavan Duggal sir, in association with International Telecommunications Union, conducted 2 training cum sensitization programs for the elected judges and officers of the International Court of Justice at The Hague, Netherlands on 23rd May 2019. Sir has been associated with the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Government of India on cyber law and electronic governance related issues and is a member of advisory committee on e-commerce in Karnataka constituted by the government of Karnataka as a member of Information Forensic Working Group on E-Information System, Security and Audit Association. Dr. Duggal sir is a member of multi-stakeholder steering group of the Asia Pacific Region Internet Governance Forum. He heads his law firm Pavan Duggal Association with his practice area among others in cyber law, business process outsourcing law, intellectual property rights and information technology law, information security law, defense, biotech, and corporate law. Dr. Pavan Duggal sir is regular on the lecture circuit. He has spoken at over 2000 conferences, seminars, and has lectured extensively in selected law colleges. As a writer, he has made his mark with 143 books on various aspects of law. He had contributed a continuing weekly column on diverse aspects of law titled Brief Cases to the Economic Times for almost a decade. I think Sir is great inspiration for we students. It is an honor to have with you. It is an honor to have you with us, sir. Sir, I welcome you on behalf of MP Law College, District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, Advanced Center on Research Development Training in Cyber Laws and Forensics, National Law School, India, University, Bangalore. I thank I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to introduce such an honorable person. Thank you. Over to you, Mayur.
Thank you so much, Anushka. I know that you all are eager to listen to our resource person, Dr. Duggal sir. So, not taking much time between you and our resource, I hand over charge to Dr. Duggal sir and set aside. I request sir to kindly bless us with his knowledge. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen and friends, this is a very historic moment as we are organizing this particular webinar, primarily because we are coming to that tipping point in the interregnum period where there is light at the end of the tunnel. Clearly, the year 2020 has been a year of despair, fear, panic, anxiety, trauma. That's actually visited all of us. No wonder 2020 has been a zero year thanks to one of the most spectacular events that we have seen in living history, being the advent and massive transmission and spread of COVID-19. No wonder in these times, while we've all been busy trying to protect ourselves from this deadly disease, things have been moving very, very rapidly. Cyberspace is changing continuously on a daily basis. And no wonder cybercrime has become the de facto mode of behavior on the cyberspace today. See, it's a fascinating time, right? When we are all fearful and we are full of panic. Cyber criminals have understood that, and consequently, they have weaponized this fear and panic to target all of us, to becoming victims of cybercrime. So, when I talk about cybercrime, it's a given reality that almost all of us will become a victim of cybercrimes if we have already not become so. It's not a question of if we will become a victim of cybercrime, it's only a question of when we will become a victim of cybercrime. Therefore, it becomes very imperative that we need to understand what's the broad emerging landscape pertaining to emerging trends in cybercrime. How can we actually prepare for these cybercrimes? How can we protect ourselves? And what kind of strategies and approaches do we really need to adopt as a fitting response to cybercrime and their various distinctive new manifestations? In this regard, let me take you over to some of the slides that I have in my presentation, and then we will discover together how things are moving so rapidly that you very quickly need to come out of a deep slumber and take note of these emerging developments. So, when we talk of emerging trends in cybercrime, what does it effectively mean? It means a constantly changing target that you have because it's constantly moving as you go forward. And therefore, for most of us who tend to take cybercrime or the internet for granted, I think it's a wake up call as a whole. Recently, the Cyberabad Cybercrime Police bust a dating fraud racket and then arrested 3 people from West Bengal. Imagine, even in these times of adversity, people are coming up with new mechanisms to cheat others, come up with dating rackets, steal information, extort money, and put people in some fear or the other. I find that activities on women per se. So, a lot of cyber are targeted against women, whether it's in terms of filming them in lewd or obscene pictures, videos, uploading the same on the pornographic websites. That's the reason why you find that in Telangana, the Telangana police has launched the Cyber campaign to tackle cyber crimes against women and children. Campaign that's aiming to enhance the building of these emerging cyber crimes. We had the boys locked. This is the case themselves. They need to do with after gang raping them and how they will kill and be sick came to the forefront here in the Delhi. But there are hundreds of boys' locker rooms being reported. That ecosystem as well. Further, sextortion.
So sorry to interrupt. So there is some technical problem. You're not audible. I request the technical support staff to look into it. Sir, your video is good as well as the presentation, but you're not audible.
So am I audible now, please?
Yes, sir.
So I was not audible from the beginning.
For the last 2 minutes, sir. So sorry to interrupt. Again, your voice.
Is my audible voice available now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's go a bit behind. I was talking about how women are being targeted by cyber criminals today. They are being pictured in obscene photographs, videos, and then these are being uploaded onto the social media and on pornographic websites. The Telangana police has come up with a new program, a campaign called Cyber Campaign, which aims to tackle cyber crimes against women and children and create more capacity building in this regard. Few months back, we had the boys' locker room case. This was a case which depicted the sick mentality of young boys. They were discussing how to gang rape girls in the boys' locker room, how to murder and kill them, and how to dispose of their bodies. That particular case got reported in the public domain, and therefore the Delhi police went ahead and took some action. But for every one case of boys' locker room that's got reported, there are hundreds of boys' locker rooms and girls' locker rooms that have not been reported. And that's a huge menace. In fact, sextortion has been massively on the rise. This sextortion is phenomenally increasing globally and also in India. In India, because people are not very careful when they go ahead and share information online. This extortion is specifically targeted against women and children, asking money in the form of ransom or extortion money for not displaying or transmitting or disseminating their sexual or obscene photographs or videos. In fact, COVID 19 has had a phenomenal impact upon the growth of cybercrime. Cybercrime has begun to see its golden age with the advent of 2020. Never before, from 1969 till 2020, did we see such massive increase in cybercrime the world over. And the golden age of cybercrime has begun, where cyber criminals are attacking victims at will, are conducting all kinds of cyber criminal activities. And these are getting manifested in a variety of approaches. For example, a man got arrested in Tamil Nadu because he was creating fake social media accounts of celebrities and misleading and misrepresenting to the members of the general public about him being the said celebrity. When I look at the global level, I realize that Interpol has actually warned us of very organized cybercrime threats to COVID-19 vaccines. Already from the early part of 2000 till these vaccines have arrived, various of these vaccine developing R&D centers were being targeted, attacked, so that their information and R&D could be stolen and could be actually gone ahead and disseminated or sold onto the darknet. But now that these vaccines have started coming in and people have become started getting inoculated, now the organized crime threat is on the supply chain of these COVID-19 vaccines. So they want to intercept that supply chain and want to cause further loss and damage. Well, cyber attacks are now the new normal. people are getting attacked left, right, and center, whether it's individuals, whether it's organizations, governments, or governmental entities. By 2021, every 11 seconds, there will be one cyber attack anywhere in the world. So you could quickly begin to start realizing how significant has this become. And a cyber attack is also a manifestation of cybercrime because it's unauthorized access and entry into somebody else's computer system or network. Today, one of the biggest trends of cybercrime that I see emerging pertain to ransomware. Ransomware attacks have become very common, and all companies, health organizations, R&D labs, hospitals are increasingly now being targeted by these ransomware attacks. In 2019, every 14 seconds, a company across the world became a victim of a ransomware attack. In 2020, the figures got bettered. Instead of 14 seconds, now this year, every 11 seconds, a company becomes a victim of a ransomware attack. And the ultimate objective of these cybercriminal activities through these cybersecurity breaches is clearly to breach the data of users, to go ahead and steal the data, and then look forward to disseminating, selling, or otherwise transferring the data to other interested stakeholders. Consequently, the global costs of cybercrimes are massively increasing. As per a McAfee report, the global cybercrime losses are expected to exceed $1 trillion. Now, this is one particular survey. There's yet another survey which said that the world had already lost more than 2 trillion US dollars thanks to cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches by 2019. And the world would lose more than 6 trillion US dollars thanks to cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches by the end of 2020. But clearly, there's also now other figures. Some figures tell us that the world will lose more than 8 trillion US dollars by 2021. A big salient feature of cybercrime today is the emerging trend of attack on critical information infrastructure, whether it's electricity grids, whether it's power companies. So we see now blackouts. So the next time there's an electricity cut in your area, think again, is it a normal cut or has it actually been a result of a cybersecurity breach? When the Mumbai blackout took place some weeks back, well, it's still being investigated as to what happened, but a lot of experts are actually not ruling out the cyber attack element. A couple of years back, when northern India fell into huge areas of darkness as the northern grid had collapsed, there were whispers in the hacking community that this was a result of hackers' handicrafts. Clearly, there are more blackouts, but slowly you're also beginning to see more brownouts, where the complete grid is not able to be destabilized, but substantial portions of the grid are destabilized. And therefore, in India, we have to now be prepared for this new kind of a cybercrime, which is specifically going to target India's power grids, power distribution companies, and the energy sector. Why? Because if you are able to disconnect the supply of electricity, you are effectively disconnecting people's connectivity to the internet. And that itself is a great element to start instilling instant fear, panic, and anxiety in the minds of people. So much so that these cyber attacks have also been seen across the world, including in the United Kingdom, in Latin America, and in the European continent as well. The fact remains is that no one is safe, and everybody could be a potential victim of cyber crimes or cybersecurity breaches. Recently, Saudi Arabia has seen rapid and repeated attacks being targeted on its systems. Australia has also seen some massive distributed denial of service attacks, which are distinctive cyber crimes targeted against the Australian ecosystem and servers. South Korea has actually seen a hack on its nuclear operator, and it's gone ahead and blamed North Korea for the December hack on its nuclear operation. All kinds of attacks are happening, and they're on the rise. For example, these attacks are also now on e-commerce players like Barnes and Noble. So when you go ahead and completely, shall I say, destabilize the temporary working of an e-commerce ecosystem, you're effectively trying to give a big message. And the message is that we as cyber criminals can go ahead and attack you at will, and that we are not bothered about the consequences. In fact, when I look at the audacity or the capacity of the cyber criminals, I realize these guys are not even bothered about how they are going to be caught or prosecuted, because they are so confident. They are constantly hiding their electronic footprints. And therefore, the focus of the new cyber criminal activities are all on data. How can they actually steal data? So a majority of these cyber crimes are targeted at attacking the vulnerability in the security system of companies, and then getting unauthorized access, and thereafter going forward and copying data for the purposes of extraction and then subsequent sale in the open market. Well, this particular survey tells us that already in the first 9 months of 2020, the world has already lost more than $6 trillion US in cyber crimes. So these are very, very exceptional and transient times in which we work. And while the cyber cells and the law enforcement agencies need to be congratulated for the work that they are doing, clearly what they are doing is much, much lesser than what needs to be done, because cybercrime has been growing so rapidly. So some cases have been registered and actions have been taken in certain cybercrime cells in different parts of India and in different countries of the world. But the quantum of cybercrime, when we compare that with the actual actions by law enforcement agencies, we realize that there's a huge gap and that there needs to be utmost immediate steps taken so as to go ahead and fill that particular gap, because everybody is getting hit, everybody is under target, and everybody is being attacked. So consequently, whether you're in the health sector, whether you're at a hospital, maybe a Brno University Hospital in the city of Brno in the Czech Republic, and you find that you are severely impacted because your entire IT networks have been targeted, and the impact is so severe that as a hospital, you have to postpone surgeries and procedures because the same cannot be done. Similarly, you find that in the US, the Department of Health and Human Services have themselves also been targeted by a massive cyber distributed denial of service attack. Now, the new age has come in, which is more got to do with the outsourcing of ransomware, outsourcing of cybercrime activities. And consequently, we have begun to see cybercrime as a service, which means you don't dirty your hands, you just order for a cyber criminal activity, and the other people will go ahead and do the cybercrime for you, and of course are going to charge you, which you need to pay through bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. So corporations are under attack, so much so that the Indian Nodal Agency on cybersecurity, being the Computer Emergency Response Team, has already warned companies that they need to be more careful in terms of enhancing the cybersecurity of their virtual private networks. Social media is a very, very fertile ground for newly emerging manifestations and avatars of cybercrime. New kinds of sadistic cybercrimes are being seen on social media to target people, their reputation, goodwill, standing, repute, and also their mental well-being and their mental balance as well. So consequently, hate crimes, cyber defamation, cyber nuisance, cyber harassment, cyber stalking are massively on the rise as far as social media is concerned. And women, unfortunately, have seen a massive brunt of these cyber criminal activities on social media. And that's why there's a need for the law to specifically not just protect all stakeholders in generally, but specifically we need to protect women and children from becoming victims of vicious cybercrime attacks on social media. We're all means can you ask other people to mute themselves, please?
It's a humble request to all the participants in the Zoom meeting. Kindly mute yourself. A humble request to all the participants in the Zoom meeting to kindly mute yourself.
Can I request the admin to mute everybody, please, barring the speaker?
I request all the participants kindly be muted. We are getting disturbance over here. Please mute yourself. Yes, sir. You may proceed. Sorry for the disturbance.
So, in today's world of video conferencing, we are quickly realizing that video conferencing is also now increasingly being targeted by cyber criminals. And a lot of cyber crimes are happening on video conferencing, including Zoom jacking and Zoom attacks, where people would get unauthorized access into the video sessions and would try to disrupt the same. Also, another trend on cybercrime that I'm beginning to see on the horizon pertains to the dissemination and increased transmission of fake news. In fact, the COVID-19 is not just a pandemic, it's also an infodemic. And in this infodemic, while some countries have come up with fake news laws, which make the publication and dissemination of fake news as an offense, for a majority of countries, these are not specifically the target areas, and consequently, a lot of countries still don't have dedicated laws to make fake news as cybercrime. We've all begun to start working from home, and there is a massive increase of work from home. Now, cyber criminals have noted that and consequently have begun to start targeting people who are working from home, including targeting their computer systems, networks, and the data that's resident therein. And this is so because at the end of the day, you quickly realize that this particular COVID-19 time, we are beginning to see massive increase of cyber crimes which are specifically targeted on people working from home. Cybersecurity breach is one of the biggest trends on cyber crimes today. All kinds of breaches are happening. There is no golden formula yet. New permutations, combinations of cybersecurity breaches are constantly increasing as we go forward. And consequently, there's a need now for effectively regulating the same through a new sub-discipline of cyber law known as cyber security law. Different countries have already started working in this regard. But at the international level, where I find that the predominant cyber crimes are based on breaches of cybersecurity, we find that there is no international law on cybersecurity, no international treaty on cybersecurity. So there's a policy vacuum at a global level. Even the Budapest Convention or the Convention on Cybercrime of Council of Europe is not adequately well placed so as to deal with the emerging manifestations and avatars of cybersecurity breaches. Consequently, countries have started saying, okay, we cannot be mute spectators. Let it take its own time when it comes to filling up the vacuum in terms of policy at a global level on cybersecurity. So countries have started coming up with their own distinctive national legislations on cybersecurity. And in these various legislations on cybersecurity, they have started coming up with distinctive cyber crimes of cases, of instances or acts which specifically deal with the breach of cybersecurity. So China has been the foremost leader in this regard and has come up with new cyber crimes in the national cyber security laws. They've come up with 3 distinctive laws on cybersecurity, including now a new legal framework during COVID-19 for protection and preservation of the cybersecurity of critical information infrastructure. Russia, in its data localization law and also in its RUNet law, has also provided for penal consequences for unauthorized access or breach into the cybersecurity of its computers, computer systems, or computer networks. Vietnam has come up with a variety of cyber crimes under their new cybersecurity law, which has defined their national cyberspace to include the entire internet per se. So in different manifestations to tell us how different countries have begun to start regulating cybercrime as we go forward. Already Thailand has tightened its cyber bill, and there's also some criticisms on that regard, because while it provides for certain penal consequences, there are some concerns by civil society that the same could be potentially misused in the coming times. We find that even Australia has come up with an anti-encryption law and has provided for some offenses or cyber crimes under the said law. For example, Australia says if you are a company, whether in Australia or otherwise, that's dealing with encryption, you are required to give your back-end keys to the government. If you do not do that, that becomes an offense punishable with imprisonment and fine. That, I think, has had massive pushback in terms of criticisms and oppositions, but nonetheless, this is a direction where things are currently going forward. We've also begun to start seeing activity on protection of cybersecurity and defining various criminal consequences in laws in Macau and Taiwan. So much so that even Singapore, in its cybersecurity law, has provided for penal consequences for activities which tantamount to breach of cybersecurity or cybercrimes per se. Another new trend that I see is vertical specific cybersecurity laws. For example, the law of South Carolina, which has passed its first insurance industry cybersecurity law, and the same has also provided for distinctive criminal consequences and some cybercrimes as a part of the same. Consequently, in the COVID-19 times, it's getting very clear that the breach of cybersecurity has got intrinsically connected cyber criminal ramifications, and that stakeholders need to be aware of these as they go forward. So much so that in the US, in the New York state, they have come up with a Shields Act, which actually has provided for not just the protection of sensitive personal data of citizens of New York State, but have further gone ahead and stipulated criminal consequences for non-compliance with the same. Egypt has also come up with an anti-cybercrime law, which is aiming to regulate the legal responsibility for web pages and their content. So different countries are coming up with new approaches. In Belarus, they have come up with a dedicated law on cyber ecosystem pertaining to blockchain or their crypto assets or cryptocurrencies. And there are also penal consequences pertaining to certain cyber crimes in the Belarus cryptocurrency law. Ohio in the US has also come up with a concept of a safe harbor for cybersecurity. And that's interesting, and that could be a great working model in the coming times. Look, a company will never be able to know when a cyber criminal activity is happening on its network. But in case, if the company is seen to be compliant with law, and if it complies with the parameters of the safe harbor, like given in the Ohio law, then I think the company has been given a statutory exemption from legal liability. And I think that's the mode in which the direction of jurisprudence has to take as we go forward. In Philippines, there is the cybercrime law that's been often criticized because recently it was invoked against a person who had called certain names to the Philippines president. And there's been criticism in that regard as well. But the growing ecosystem is telling us different countries are now coming up with their own distinctive approaches so as to deal with cybercrimes and cybersecurity breaches. We have to quickly realize that cybersecurity breaches and cybercrimes are intrinsically two sides of the same coin. A cybersecurity breach automatically includes or pertains to a cybercriminal activity. Similarly, often a cybercriminal activity may have connection pertaining to unauthorized breach of the cybersecurity of a computer system or a person's data that's resident therein. No wonder cybersecurity breaches are now the new normal. In the COVID-19 times, I've written a book called New Cyber World Order Post-COVID-19. In this book, I've argued that a lot of irreversible changes are happening in cyberspace. And by the time the world conquers successfully COVID-19 as an infection, we would have arrived into a new cyberspace where a new cyber world order will await for us. The states will become extremely powerful, and cybercrime will become a default activity, almost a daily activity which will not surprise us. Increasing cybersecurity breaches will be the characteristics of this new cyber world order. And there's going to be massive increases of migration of users from the superficial net onto the dark net. So when we talk of these words, new cyber world order, it's talking of a new cyberspace for us, where we will have to be intrinsically very careful on protecting our data, on protecting our privacy, because privacy is going to increasingly get evaporated, and the chances of us becoming hapless victims of cybercrimes cannot be ruled out. Consequently, I've seen that various countries have already started coming up with new legislations during the coronavirus times on the basis of coronavirus, which is aimed primarily at strengthening governmental hands and governmental powers. The list of these various countries who have come up with these laws clearly have a common theme, that countries are increasingly relying upon the emphasis on adopting cyber resilience as a methodology as we go forward. There is no denying the fact that cyber law is going to play an extremely important role in our lives. From the time when we thought that cyber law is just a small discipline in a small vertical, this particular law has grown massively. Now, as the world increasingly moves on to the digital bandwagon, I realize that cyber law is going to be central to our lives in whatever work that we are doing in. We don't need to be lawyers to know that cyber law will govern all our activities pertaining to the electronic ecosystem. And in these increasing times of massive increasing frequencies of cyber criminal activities, it will be cyber laws that will actually be helping us for getting effective remedy against these offenders who target us through a variety of cyber criminal activities. Another trend that I'm seeing on cyber crimes is the use of emerging technologies by cyber criminals. And one of the technologies that's now increasingly being used by cyber criminals is artificial intelligence. Well, artificial intelligence is the next big frontier. A lot of work has happened in artificial intelligence, but if you go to the darknet, you quickly realize that a number of sites are advertising their cybercrime as a service model and offerings with the USP that they are using artificial intelligence for committing cyber crimes. And as artificial intelligence will be used by cyber criminals to target other users and their networks and systems and data, it's going to complicate the scenario completely. It's also correct that artificial intelligence will be also used to fight cybercrime, but nonetheless, it's a big challenge that's up on the horizon. Similarly, Internet of Things has begun to start seeing massive increase of cyber criminal activities. Well, in December 2020, the United States has passed a new law in the form of a law that's dedicated on improvement of cybersecurity in the context of Internet of Things. But then a lot of cyber criminal activities are being done by these IoT connected devices. And the next time an IoT connected device targets you through a cyber criminal activity, the bigger question is who will be responsible? Who can be made attributable for the same? And how can actions be taken forward? So very interesting questions as we go forward in this regard as such. Just a minute, please. Major area of concern from cyber criminal angles pertains to blockchains. Blockchains are getting more mature and are increasingly now being used, but blockchains are now also increasingly being used for cyber criminal activities. Interesting, but that's now the new paradigm, and therefore we have to come up with new approaches in this regard as well. Facial recognition is the new flavor of the times. We will see more and more facial recognition as we go forward. But the advent of facial recognition also brings across new elements pertaining to misuse. How about your facial recognition data being hacked, stolen by cyber criminals, and then being sold for consideration onto the darknet? Those issues need to be appropriately addressed as we go forward. In fact, it's the darknet that's now increasingly getting into more focus and into the attention of the common conscience of the internet users. Well, darknet had always existed. It is the dark, deep underbelly of the internet where you cannot go using a search engine. You have to go using a particular browser known as the Onion Router browser. But this Tor browser anonymizes you and your identity. So when you land up in the darknet, you are anonymous and everybody else is also anonymous. And in this anonymity created ecosystem, you find that there is trust. Cybercrime is a form of economic activity there. So massive increase of cyber criminal activities on the darknet. Unfortunately, at the time when we talk, the law enforcement agencies do not have the appropriate wherewithal to go ahead and crack and fully investigate cybercrimes on the darknet. This being so, some efforts have begun to start taking place. Interpol has now started a new training program for law enforcement agencies for purposes of training them on the darknet. But when I look at cyber criminal activities on the horizon, the list is constantly increasing, whether it's the DDoS attacks, whether these are online scams, hackings, virus disseminations, webjackings, financial frauds, salami slicing attacks, software piracy, ransomware, social engineering, phishing, pornography, or the like. The list is constantly increasing as we go forward. And in this context, when I am coming to the Indian ecosystem, I have to remind us that we have the Indian cyber law, which is already there with us for the last 20 years. The Indian Cyber Law, being the Information Technology Act 2000, is India's mother legislation pertaining to the electronic format. Anything that you can do in the electronic format gets covered under this law. This law was passed in a great hurry by Parliament in the year 2000 and was thought to be a very sector-specific law. As time passed by, the Indian Cyber Law has evolved as one of the three most significant pieces of legislative history in India as far as legislations are concerned. So one of the top three legislations in India, the other two being the Constitution and the Indian Penal Code. Why? Anything pertaining to the electronic format is covered under the Indian Cyber Law. So whether you use computers, computer systems, computer networks, computer resources, communication devices, as also data and information in the electronic form, you and your activities are going to be covered under the Indian cyber law, which incidentally has gone ahead and amended 4 different laws of the country, being the Indian Penal Code, the Bankers Books Evidence Act, the Reserve Bank of India Act, and the Indian Evidence Act. Good news about the Indian cyber law, it granted legality to the electronic format. Everything that you do in the electronic format is now legal. It actually granted legal recognition to electronic contracts, and therefore has actually ushered in an era of growth of electronic governance. As also electronic commerce, there are specific provisions pertaining to electronic governance under the Indian IT Act as well. But primarily, this particular law is also a law that's targeting on cyber crimes. Initially, this was just an e-commerce law and did not have provisions on cyber crimes when it was presented in the form of the Information Technology Bill 1999 before the Indian Parliament. So when it went to the Parliamentary Standing Committee, the committee recommended to the government that it needs to be beefed up by coming up with specific provisions to deal with cyber criminal activities. Consequently, a new chapter was added under the Indian cyber law, being chapter Roman 11, which deals with various cyber crimes. The first thing that we need to note is that in India, the cyber crimes can be investigated by any police officer of the rank of an inspector. Earlier in the year 2000, it was a police officer not below the rank of a deputy superintendent of police, but after 2008, this has now been relegated to the officers of the rank of inspectors. Various cyber crimes have been defined. The mother cyber crimes are defined as computer offenses under section 66, read with section 43 of the Information Technology Act 2000. Further, tampering with computer source code is also a distinct offense. Some new offenses got added under the law by the Information Technology Amendment Act in the year 2008. So, dishonestly receiving stolen computer resource or communication device is an offense. Identity theft is a specific offense under 66C, and cheating by way of personation by using computer resource is also an offense. You violate somebody's privacy, and that's a cyber crime. Cyber terrorism is a heinous cyber crime. And of course, publishing obscene electronic content is a distinctive cyber crimes under the law. The 2008 amendments had also actually gone ahead and added section 66A of the IT Act, which made it an offense when somebody sent any information using a computer or a communication device that was grossly offensive or menacing in character. But the Supreme Court, in the historic judgment of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, effectively held that section 66A was constitutionally invalid as it did not fulfill the minimum mandates given by the Constitution and hence was struck down. So section 66A was struck down in March 2015. Since then, we have seen massive increase of cyberbullying, cyber trolling, cyber nuisance, cyber defamation, and the social media cyber crimes, because a lot of the deterrence that was there in the law, thanks to this section, has now gone off, and people believe that they can subscribe to the Indian Jugaad school of management as they go forward and do their various cyber criminal activities. Yes, the consequences are that if you are going to get arrested, you go to jail. But then when you look at a majority of cyber crimes, you find that a majority of cyber crimes have been made as bailable offenses under the Indian cyber law, which means you are entitled to bail as a matter of right. And ever since these changes in terms of bailability got introduced in the 2008, India had to see a famine of cybercrime convictions. I was the counsel for the complainant in India's first cybercrime conviction in the year 2003. That was a case where we thought, look, now the floodgates are going to open up, but we were mistaken. The amendments to the law effectively have contributed to creation of a vacuum, a famine, primarily because once a cyber criminal gets a bail, the first thing that he does is to go ahead and destroys the incriminating electronic evidence. And hence in this regard, the role of intermediaries becomes of crucial necessity. These intermediaries are big data repositories, and these have immense data, and therefore there's an utmost need for them to protect and preserve the data while they are dealing with the day-to-day operations. Clearly, under Section 79 of the IT Act, intermediaries are required to exercise due diligence while they discharge their obligations under the law, and which means that they have to comply with the parameters of compliances under the IT Act and rules and regulations thereunder. If as an intermediary you do not do your due diligence, you can be stuck with the civil liability of paying unlimited damages by way of compensation. You can also potentially be facing criminal liability of imprisonment ranging from 3 years imprisonment to life imprisonment, fine ranging from 1 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees. The government has come up with certain rules. These are known as the Information Technology Rules 2011, and a number of activities have been prohibited under the said rules as well. Further, now reporting a cybersecurity breach in India is mandatory, effective a notification of the IT rules and a notification of the Government of India of 2017. When I look at this entire ecosystem, I quickly realize that for cyber crimes to be effectively prosecuted, electronic evidence becomes of crucial necessity. And the law pertaining to electronic evidence has been repeatedly molded and, shall I say, changed from time to time by the Supreme Court. In the year 2013, we had the case of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir, which laid down to rest the law and said that, look, Section 65B of the Evidence Act was a distinctive code in its own self. After Anwar versus Bashir, we found some other judgments of the Supreme Court which talked in different directions. So the matter was ultimately referred to the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court. And in July 2020, the Constitution Bench, in the case of Arjun Panditrao Khotkar, has upheld the ratio of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir and has said those conditions have to be fulfilled. Now, these become important because in India, electronic evidence is becoming increasingly important. Think in COVID-19 times, whatever disputes have taken place, they have only taken place as a result of electronic evidence. And therefore, when you're looking at prosecution of criminal activities and cyber crimes in the ecosystem, the conditions that are given in Anwar PV versus PK Bashir, which have been upheld by Arjun Pandit Khotkar case, have to be fulfilled. So first and foremost, we need to realize that the Supreme Court has said that electronic record produced for the inspection of the court is documentary evidence under Section 3 of the Indian Evidence Act. Further, Supreme Court says that Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act is a complete code in its own self. So being a special law, the Supreme Court says that the general law under Section 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act has to yield. Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act being a special provision dealing with the admissibility of electronic record, the general law under Section 65 and 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act has to yield. And of course, when you are giving any electronic evidence in a court of law, all the 4 conditions that are given under Section 65B2 have to be fulfilled. And this is what Supreme Court has upheld in Arjun Panditrao Khotkar case as well. So one of these conditions, first, you must be able to give a certificate which identifies the electronic record containing the electronic record was produced. Deal with the applicable conditions of the Indian Evidence Act by a person occupying a responsible official position in relation. Hello?
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Is my voice audible now, please?
Yes, sir.
So we were saying that the certificate must deal with the applicable conditions under Section 65B2 of the Evidence Act. And further, the certificate must be signed by a person occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of the relevant device. And in that particular certificate, the person has only to state the certificate to the best of his knowledge and belief. So you cannot vouch for complete and absolute veracity, but you can only vouch for truth on the basis of your knowledge and belief. Well, those are the principles of electronic evidence which are equally applicable for prosecution of cyber criminal activities in India. Internet users are constantly growing, cyber crimes are growing, and therefore we have to be prepared. As the Honorary Chancellor of Cyber Law University, being an online university, I have crafted and developed various courses on with different aspects of cyber law, cybercrime law, and cybersecurity. These include courses on cyber law, cybercrime, and cybersecurity in the coronavirus age, coronavirus, work from home, and legal issues, cybercrime in social media and law, and cybercrime and cyber law. These courses have been running for the last more than 2.5 years, and have been subscribed to by more than 25,500 students from 171 countries across the world, speaking 52 national languages. Further, we've had some distinctive courses which help you equip your knowledge and your skill sets on how these newly emerging trends are happening. As my law firm, Pavan Duggal Associates, works in the intersection of law and technology, I believe each day is a fantastic day because we learn so much. We have to constantly keep on updating our skill sets, and technology presents immense number of new challenges. And it's very gratifying to contribute to always the evolving, pushing envelope of legal jurisprudence pertaining to cyberspace. This is what other people talk about us and our work. And we believe that as time passes by, there will be need for far more cyber lawyers, as now the digitization has shown us that this massive increase of the electronic format is going to put cyber related issues more a part of our central lifeline as we go forward. Pavan Duggal Associates helps in companies in ensuring their compliances with Indian cyber law. We help intermediaries to do their due diligence under the Indian cyber law. Anything to do in the intersection of law and technology, that's what we do. I've been working in this space for more than 25 years. And I can tell you that even after 25 years of working in IT law and cyber law, I still feel myself as a novice, a rough student every morning when I wake up, because there are so many new developments taking place and you have to constantly keep on updating your skill sets. So I would like to say that the Indian cyber law is, like the analogy that I see in Gita. In Gita discourse in the Mahabharata, Lord Krishna had actually said one particular message. You come to my Sharana and I will protect you. I think the same message is what the Indian cyber law is providing to us. You come within the ambit of the Indian cyber law, comply with its parameters, and the law guarantees you, it will protect you. You cannot be sent behind bars. You cannot be forced to pay 1 rupee damages by way of compensation. So all said and done, when there is so much of increasing cyber crimes all around us, the focus is going to be on cyber law, because ultimately these cyber criminal activities will require to be appropriately regulated. And therefore cyber law and cybercrime are going to represent very important and fascinating aspects of our life. New manifestations, new avatars, new versions are going to constantly keep on evolving. Therefore, we not only have to ensure that we keep on updating our laws so as to make them more topical and relevant in the fight against cybercrime, but also to ensure that whatever laws that we currently have, we comply with the same so that we are seen on the right side of the law. Because my work in the IT Act tells you that the IT Act is like a bhavar, a whirlpool. Once you get stuck in a matter under the IT Act, it could take you years and even decades to come out of that particular matter. So the best stuff is be on the right side of the law. Try to protect yourselves. Cybercrimes will keep on increasing. Hence, we have to now adopt more proactive legal strategies on how best can we go ahead and protect ourselves from becoming victims of cybercrime. It's something like, when I'm going to go out of my home, there'll be a lot of rain happening. There'll be storm. I want you to carry your umbrella. I want you to carry your raincoat, wear it. Why? So that it could protect you. This umbrella, this raincoat will not just be compliances with the Indian cyber law, but also would be appropriate capacity building, primarily in terms of being aware of these newly emerging trends in cybercrime, how they could potentially target you, and then coming up with appropriate legal strategies to prevent yourself from becoming victims of these kinds of cyber criminal activities, because that will be very essential to protect ourselves and our data, our reputation, our digital presence, and our digital lives, both in the digital present and also in the digital future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I would be delighted to be answering any specific questions that any one of you may have. And in case if you require any further inputs from my side, I will be always available. My email ID is pavan@pavanduggal.com or pavanduggal@yahoo.com. Please feel free to connect with me. I'll be happy to assist you in any manner that I could. And thank you once again to MP Law College for this remarkable and distinctive opportunity and honor that you have bestowed upon me by inviting me to come and share some of my thoughts. It's an evolving space. This is constantly evolving. I can't say that I've covered everything, but I've sought to give you a broad overview of what is happening as we go forward. Of course, it's a live exercise. And as we are going forward, we are beginning to start seeing that new paradigms of cybercrimes will keep on happening. New avatars will keep on emerging. Hence, the focus will be upon all of us so as to be aware of these newly emerging trends of cybercrime and then try as far as possible that we safeguard ourselves, our data, and our interests from becoming victims of cybercrimes. Because once you become a victim of cybercrime, life is never the same again. But at the end of the day, let's start inculcating cyber security and cyber resilience as a way of life. Let's not wait for the government to come to your assistance once you become a victim of cybercrime. Let's start adopting good hygiene methodologies, habits, procedures, and processes as part of our day-to-day lives in order to make not just us and our data more safe, but also our peer groups, our family members, our friends, also more safe. Let's all contribute in this constant new paradigm that's staring us on our faces. Life has changed dramatically, and the quicker we start coming up with new evolution of appropriate strategies to meet with new goalposts, new changing paradigms pertaining to cybercrimes, the better it will be. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your wonderful insight. This will definitely, your wisdom and your knowledge that you have shared will definitely be very helpful to all the attendees who are listening us live and who will be listening us later. Now, I hand over the charge to Professor Dinesh Kolte, sir, coordinator of this 5-day national webinar, to take over the question answer session as well as to express gratitude to our first resource person, Dr. Duggal, sir. Over to you, Kolte, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you, mate. Respected Advocate Pavan Duggalji, there is one questions from the participant. As the number of IoT devices are increasing and generating huge amount of big data, whether personal or non-personal, how is the Indian cyber legal framework, especially the Personal Data Protection Bill 2018, address the concern on unauthorized access and use of non-personal data? This question is from Professor Vivekananda.
Thank you for that question, Professor Vivekanandan. I think the Indian cyber law was never meant to be a data protection law. So it was like a Bollywood masala film, which had masala of various films. So we had different masala of electronic commerce, of electronic governance, and we put in some provisions on protecting data. But quickly, we had to start realizing that we didn't have a data protection law as a whole. Under the 2011 rules, which were passed under the Information Technology Act, we defined what was sensitive personal data under the information technology, reasonable security practices and procedures, and sensitive personal data or information rules 2011. and we stipulated various parameters for protection and preservation of sensitive personal data, including that any entity who's dealing, handling, or processing with the same will have to mandatorily go ahead and implement and maintain reasonable security practices while it deals, handles, or processes such data. But those have been not very, very adequate. Consequently, the government of India appointed Justice Sri Krishna Committee, who came up with its report and a draft Personal Data Protection Bill 2018. On that basis, the government prepared its own bill and produced it before Parliament, being the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019. That's currently pending consideration before the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Now, very quickly, we have to start realizing that this particular law was actually put before Parliament last year. Since then, there is so much now new learnings that we have learned during COVID-19 in the year 2020 that I believe that the said law is now will have to be reworked and revised because it doesn't cover the complete things. Even otherwise, when I look at the ambit of the law, it is substantially inspired or copied from the General Data Protection Regulation. And there are slight concerns because the GDPR and the European Union had come up with these very mature concepts of data protection because they had seen maturity of their data protection laws for the last more than 2 decades. But in India, which does not yet have a data protection law, you are effectively trying to go ahead and insert alien concepts in the Indian ecosystem by just doing a mere cut and paste without even appropriately customizing the same. That I think could present immense kind of problems, and we could see immense challenges. Even otherwise, the ambit of the Personal Data Protection Bill 2019 is only about personal data. So it's talking about sensitive personal data, which incidentally has been defined under the 2011 rules. It's talking about critical personal data. I'm not so sure what's going to be critical personal data, but non-personal data is clearly not yet addressed. So therefore, we have yet another committee of the government chaired by Mr. Chris Krishnan, who effectively would be coming up with a new report on how to deal with the protection of non-personal data. I think we need to do quite a lot in this regard as a nation. Currently, we are thoroughly unprepared. Big data sets are coming big time, but we don't have appropriate legal frameworks so as to govern the nuances pertaining to big data sets. Similarly, protection of information and the role of data intermediaries as data repositories have to be revisited. The kind of immunity that was granted to intermediaries under Section 79 of the Information Technology Act 2000 is clearly now out of date. And we have to make these intermediaries more responsible for data that's being transmitted on the networks, given the fact that since 2015, ever since the Shreya Singhal judgment came, most of these intermediaries have quietly transformed their roles as becoming mute spectator while mayhem happens on the network. So I believe a lot of work needs to be done. The government is doing some work, but it'll have to be very swift and nimble in its approach. It'll have to incorporate the learnings of COVID-19 in the Personal Data Protection Bill. Similarly, a new distinctive legal framework will have to come up on non-personal data. We have to come up with stringent authorities, stringent penalties, and stringent provisions to bring in a message of deterrence. Currently, the concept of data as a valuable asset in India is virtually non-existent amongst large users of the internet. This is so because of early levels of the maturity curve as far as internet usage is concerned. So we will have to create more capacity buildings. We will have to get in some test cases. We will have to give a deterrent message that, look, the moment you are dealing, handling, or processing a data belonging to a third party or a sensitive personal data, you are required to be far more careful and you will have to do your compliances. So I agree that the compliances will increase for all companies, but ultimately, if that contributes in making the ecosystem and the personal and all personal data of people more secure, more safe, and more reliant in this ecosystem, the better it will be. So all eyes are going to be currently on the government as to how it's now going to come up with new legal approaches so as to protect not just sensitive personal data, non-personal data, but also effectively regulate the legal challenges thrown up by big data sets in India as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Dr. Prashant Desai, formerly professor of National School, Bangalore. Is data protection law help in protection of personal data in India?
So could you repeat your question?
Sir, is data protection law help in protection personal data in India? Personal data protection.
I don't think the current personal data protection bill is going to be very, very effective because it already has immense number of loopholes. And unfortunately, they are in a great hurry to take this forward without even addressing those loopholes. Even the learnings of COVID-19 and the work from home paradigm that we have seen are not yet been incorporated in the bill. And even the discussions at the committee are very selective. So I hope they are able to make it more holistic, more, shall I say, encompassing in its approach, because in India, getting a law passed is such a big problem. And then even if you pass a law, getting it amended is an even bigger challenge, primarily because of lack of political will in this direction, or because the fact that there are so many other national exigencies that the governments of the day have to deal with. So I hope that they are able to substantially beef it. Currently, I believe if it's going to be interpreted or implemented in the current form, in the form of the Personal Data Protection Bill 2019, we are going to open up a Pandora's box of litigation. We are going to open up more troubles because a lot of things have not been well thought of. Merely cut and paste is not going to work in India. And we have to realize that as a very given fact. You know, just because we want to piggy ride on GDPR does not mean I don't even take into account what my existing ground reality is. How do you expect this small company who in a tier 3 town in India, who's dealing with personal data of users, to be aware of your law, to be complying with the law, and to be aware of the fact that they can actually be fined up to 15 crore rupees of their turnover? I think we have to go far beyond. We have to look at more holistic, effective remedies to persons. Tomorrow, if my data is compromised, where do I need to go? Do I go into a rigmarole of constantly from one authority to the other? They are talking of a new authority. We don't know when the authority is going to come up, when the rules for the same are going to come up. So in this interregnum period, there's a need for effectively providing effective remedies to people. Therefore, my vision is that the Personal Data Protection Bill in the current form is not at all adequate. It has immense legal challenges, issues. Yes, it's a remarkable step forward. There's no denying the fact. But then whatever the loopholes, the drawbacks are there in the law, those must be taken into consideration in the government now, the joint parliamentary committee now, and must try to beef them up. Ultimately, if we are able to protect data of Indians, and if you are able to have a substantially robust and cogent approach on data localization, then to a large extent, we can make this data as an intrinsic basis for protecting and enhancing the cyber sovereignty of the country, apart from protecting the sovereignty, security, and integrity of India. So hopefully the government would be listening, and hopefully it's going to beef up its proposed initiatives in this regard. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Another question is there. Why there is a no ban on dark net, sir? Is it really difficult to trace IP address of cyber criminal who commit cyber crime through dark net?
Sir, it's impossible to ban darknet because it's already there. If you want to close your eyes as a pigeon to a cat which is standing in front of you, God help you. Why? Because the cat is going to eat the pigeon. So there's no benefit in daydreaming the fact that we can ban darknet. It's now an eventual reality. It got created by the CIA in the US and now has become so huge. As per one estimate, it's 500 times the size of the superficial net. So this kind of a big paradigm, you just can't wish them away. Yes, attribution is one of the biggest challenges, and that's why we have to start working on effective strategies, legal strategies. Look, governments of the world have no problem if you use darknet for personal legitimate purposes. You want to go and express any of your opinions there, no problem. But the moment you start using or misusing the darknet for cyber criminal purposes, then you should not get this feeling that, look, you have a license to commit cyber crimes and the law enforcement agencies will not do anything against you. In my books on darknet law and darknet and anonymity, I've specifically argued that the time has become ripe for coming up with enabling legal frameworks to regulate the darknet. And it's not that they cannot be regulated, it can be regulated, but it requires political will. Unfortunately, a number of countries are doing both covert and overt activities on the internet, including on the darknet. And there is lack of political will in effectively regulating the darknet as a whole. So I believe currently it becomes very difficult.
Sir, you are not audible.
Sir, your Zoom application has been muted. Yes.
Sorry. I was saying that currently it's not possible for us to really attribute IP addresses to any particular locations because of the intrinsic architecture of the darknet. But I think a lot of work. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
So currently, I believe that the architecture does not allow complete attribution, but we will have to start working on this very quickly. Fortunately, Interpol has already started doing a training program on how to detect and investigate cyber crimes on the darknet. We'll have to start building on those programs. We'll have to start coming up with legal frameworks that can effectively address the issues of attribution and other challenges that have been thrown up by the darknet. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is another question from Dr. Divanshu Srivastav from School of Law, Jagran Lake City University, Bhopal. What, according to you, sir, is the core reason behind establishment of cybercrime cities like Jamtara, and it is still beyond control of the laws?
Jamtara represents to you a new paradigm. It's been made even more popular thanks to the Netflix series. But let me tell you, there's no one Jamtara in the country. There has been mushrooming of Jamtaras as a cottage industry across the country during COVID-19. And the reason why the law has failed in this regard is when the entire community in a village goes into cybercrime activities, then it becomes very difficult for the law enforcement agencies to permeate inside because nobody talks, nobody cooperates, nobody gives you information. So clearly, we have to come up with more cogent and effective approaches to deal with Jamtara. Current approaches have failed. But right now, it's not only one Jamtara. I know of so many other small districts, small areas, small villages who have started emulating the economic model of Jamtara, and people are very happy. Because you see, it's an economic activity. At the end of the day, people realize that here is a distinctive way for them to fight their poverty and the lack of resources. So I think we will have to come up with more deterrence in the law. We'll have to give more teeth in the law. We'll also have to have political will. A lot of times, the Jamtaras of the world are not touched because they constitute electoral votes. And for political reasons, political parties don't really want to go hammer and tongs against some of these regions. But when the entire the village, the community is on cybercrime, I think there's something much more that meets the eye. We need to look at sociological reasons. We need to look at economic reasons. And ultimately, we also need to look at legal approaches which we can adopt. But ultimately, it will have to be, at the end of the day, political will that's going to drive all of this forward. Because even if you try building capacities in those areas, they don't want to engage into much capacity building because they know, sir, we know that cybercrime pays. And it's good if by doing cybercrime, a normal person in a village can earn a couple of lakh rupees in a week or in a fortnight or in a month. There is no deterrent from them not to do so. So I think it's going to be a holistic approach from a variety of angles which will have to be taken up to ensure that the replication of the Jamtara model as a mushrooming paradigm is effectively stopped. Otherwise, we have a very immensely brewing trouble in our hands, which is going to get more and more difficult to contain as we go forward. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one question is from Dr. Manila from, I think, UP. Are cyber security laws to be made more stringent, or the implementation part must be focused more upon, or both are needed?
Thank you, ma'am. I believe currently India must start in the direction of having a cyber security law. At the time when I'm talking with you, India does not have a cyber security law. And consequently, we only are reliant upon the IT Act. Yes, the government has now given its intention to come up with a cyber security law. It's going to come up with a National Cybersecurity Strategy 2020. But ultimately, merely having paper laws is not going to suffice. You will have to implement them. So if an enforcement of the laws becomes of crucial necessity, further, till such time these new laws don't come across, let's come up with amending the Indian cyber law. One of the huge defects and the historical mistakes that India made in the year 2008 was by making almost all cyber crimes as bailable offenses under the Information Technology Amendment Act 2008 that got passed after the Mumbai attacks. That has cost the Indian nation immense amount of loss. And I think that's eroded the confidence of the people in the intrinsic ability of the system to be effective in the fight against cybercrime. So that needs to be added, amended. More deterrence needs to be coming in the fight against cybercrime. But whatever existing provisions of law they must be effectively enforced, because implementation is key for restoring the confidence of the people back in the ability of the system. So it'll be a variety of strategies that will have to go forward. You'll have to have strong laws. You'll have to have dedicated cybersecurity law. You'll have to amend the Indian IT law to make it more robust, more effective, and more deterrent. And finally, you'll have to implement it. And you have ultimately to create far more capacity building, informing people of their rights, of where to report cybercrime, and also meeting up with people's expectation that merely reporting is not going to be sufficient. They'll require cogent action. At the end of the day, because now cybercrime has become so much common and has permeated the common thread of the fabric of the society at large. So I think if we take these holistic strategies, we could be more effective going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is one question from Dr. Indra Priyadarsani, Professor of Law. She say, question is, artificial intelligence is growing fast. How about the protections?
How about the?
Protection.
Ma'am,
protection, safeguards.
Thank you. Artificial intelligence is growing very fast, but artificial intelligence has been known to become rogue in the sense it is known to not follow human instructions. I'll give you an example. In one country, in one laboratory, they were doing experiments on two artificial intelligence algorithms on two machines in the same room, and both of them were unconnected machines. There was no internet. And they very quickly started realizing that both these machines started talking to each other in a language that humans did not know. And they had to physically stop the experiment. So even in the International Space Station, we have had a case where they opened up an artificial intelligence algorithm who, after behaving properly, threatened the astronaut that the astronaut needs to not be rude with the AI. So AI going rogue is going to be a given reality. Therefore, we will have to come up with appropriate protections so that the human desire, the human instruction is not vetoed down by artificial intelligence. As per one survey, the human intelligence is going to be surpassed by artificial intelligence by 2062. I believe the tipping point will come much earlier. So in a scenario like this, if you're going to come up with appropriate legal frameworks that will mandate that the artificial intelligence algorithms should be drafted and should be made in such a manner by the coders that they do not veto or supersede the human instructions. That could be a good way going forward. Already the ad hoc committee of the Council of Ministers at the Council of Europe is looking at legal mechanisms and frameworks for regulating artificial intelligence. At the Artificial Intelligence Law Hub in New Delhi, we are now researching on new legal principles that can be made applicable at a global level so as to safeguard the benevolent use of artificial intelligence, and also to come up with legal frameworks and principles which can provide for the regulation of artificial intelligence at a global level in the coming times. I endorse your thought process. We need to do a lot of work. Fortunately, a lot of work is being done in different quarters, but ultimately the governments have to wake up. They will have to start enacting artificial intelligence laws, like the state of Illinois has already now come up with a dedicated law on artificial intelligence, which has come into effect from 1st of January 2020. I think those kinds of models will have to be replicated as we go forward. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a last question from Adarsh Davare, sir. I would like to know why there was need to repeal sections 66A. Altogether, it was dealing with sending with offensive and menacing message, which have been treated as cyber stalking.
I think 66A was primarily struck down by the Supreme Court in Shreya Singhal on the ground that some of the parameters that were given therein were far broader than the reasonable restrictions on free speech that are enshrined under Article 19(2) of the Constitution of India. But in doing that, the Supreme Court set aside the entire section, whereas another approach could have been that only portions of the section could be set aside. Because one of the direct disadvantages of doing away with 66A has been that cyber stalking, cyber bullying, cyber harassment, cyber nuisance, and social media crimes have massively increased. People have suddenly got to have a mistaken notion that there is no law, and therefore they can go ahead and engage in any of these kinds of cyber criminal activities. And therefore, there has been now talk within the government that they would want to come up with a new kind of legal framework that somehow essentially captures the salient spirit of 66A by ensuring that the constitutional protections of reasonable restrictions on free speech are also appropriately protected and adhered to as enshrined under Article 19(2) of the Constitution. Recently, the Kerala government came up with an ordinance which had almost similar levels or elements like those that were there under 66A, but that has also got massively opposed, and there has been some kind of a hiatus in that regard. Ultimately, you have to quickly start realizing that as a country, you have to give a message of deterrence. 66A, to the extent that it was in violation of 19(2) of the Constitution, would have been set aside, would have been great. But now that the incomplete section has been set aside, the onus is on the government to come up with more effective mechanisms on how to ensure that the nation as a whole can deal with the emerging challenges thrown up by cyberbullying, cyber stalking, cyber nuisance, and cyber defamation as we go forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hope questions have been over. You answer all the questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you this morning.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Dinesh Kolte, sir, the coordinator of this 5-day national webinar, to express his vote of thanks. Sir.
Thank you, Mahir. Good afternoon to one and all present over here. I, Professor Dinesh Kolte, coordinator of this 5 days national webinar on emerging trends in cyber crimes, have privileged to propose vote of thanks of this session. I, on behalf of MP Law College, Aurangabad, District Legal Services Authority, Aurangabad, and Cyber Research Centers of National School of Indian University, Bengaluru, extend our deep sense of gratitude and sincere thanks to Dr. Pavan Duggal ji, Advocate Supreme Court of India, for giving his precious time to enlighten us on the topic of emerging trends in cyber crimes. We are highly indebted to you, sir. At the same time, I also express my sincere thanks to our Principal District and Session Judge, Honorable Shri S.D. Tekade, sir, who always a source of inspiration and to guide us for organizing this seminar, webinar. I also express thanks to Dr. Kalpalata Patil Bharaswadkar, Secretary of our Institute, Advocate Shri Shrikant Advan Sir, Dr. Sadhna Pandey Madam, HOD, Law Department of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, all the judges throughout Maharashtra, advocates, teachers, students. I express my sincere thanks to them. All the staffs of the District Court of Aurangabad, High Court of Aurangabad, MP Law College, especially Mr. Shubham Jaiswal from MP Law College. I express thanks to them who assisted us to organize this program. And last not but least, Mayur Subedar, who anchored this program, Arya and Anushka, who introduced the guest today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Before departing, there is an announcement that tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we would be having our second session, presided over by Dr. Karnika Seth ma'am, leading practitioner at the Supreme Court of India, and ma'am would be guiding us on the topic of appreciation of digital evidence. So it's a kind notice to all the registered participants to be present tomorrow at 11 o'clock on the YouTube link or the YouTube channel of MANIKCHAND PAHADE Law College. Thank you.
I again special thanks to Pavan Duggal sir, in spite of his busy schedule. Sir is available, and whenever I call, sir immediately receives your call. We intended to not virtually present but actually present because of this COVID problem. Last year we had organized a national conference, but because of this COVID we cancelled it, sir. In future, definitely we will invite you. Please come to Aurangabad. Thank you, sir.
It'd be a pleasure, sir. I'd love to come. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Take care, sir. Thank you, sir.